Now that the dust has settled, it's time to give the draft grade for your 2024 Minnesota Vikings, which I technically already gave during my reaction to their performance in round one, saying that from this point forward, the rest of the draft, it doesn't matter what they do, they're getting an A+ from me. This is the greatest Vikings draft of all time, so I'm going to keep that same energy. Kwesi absolutely cooked. Now, in fairness, you did need a couple of things to go in your favor. For instance, at pick number 6 by the New York Giants, heavily rumored to be going after a quarterback for the Vikings. Hey, bro, we need for you, Big Blue, to believe in Daniel Jones just one more time so our guy can continue to fall down to us. And the rumors turned out to be not true. They didn't take a quarterback. Woo! Dodged a bullet there. And then at pick 8, Atlanta, they shocked the world after giving Kirk Cousins $100 million in guarantees. They stupidly decided to take a quarterback. Okay, we didn't see that coming. If you're going to take a quarterback, just don't take our quarterback. Don't take our guy. And they didn't. They took the wrong guy. Our guy continues to fall. And then you had to potentially ward off any outside teams trading up potentially to leapfrog you to then take your guy, JJ McCarthy. So then you go from 11-10. You end up getting your guy, JJ McCarthy, your new franchise quarterback. And it was a bit of a battle leading up to this draft as far as debates. On one side, you have, give up whatever the cost, doesn't matter what the haul is, give it up to get your quarterback of the future versus get your quarterback of the future, but be sensible. Don't give up too much. And I would say the sensible side won. However, with the favorable results that both sides wanted initially. We want our quarterback of the future. You got him. And you didn't have to give up a haul in order to get that. Not only did you not have to give up a haul, you went into the draft with 2 first-round picks. And while getting your new franchise quarterback, you were still able to maintain your second first-round pick while also protecting your future first-round pick in 2025, which, by the way, you traded up from 23 to 17, and you ended up with 2 players that were projected to be top 10 picks in this draft. Then, in the 4th round, you got a corner that provides an additional fail-safe in the event that a Caleb Evans just doesn't work out. Had a very shaky season in 2023. I reacted to the signing of Shaq Griffin this offseason as, this officially puts a Caleb Evans on notice. Now with Khyree Jackson selected at pick 108, that gives you an additional insurance policy in that department. You drafted a kicker who can hopefully make extra points. If you want to nitpick or dock the Vikings as far as a downgrade from an A+, you can say, okay, in the 4th round, instead of Khyree Jackson, you didn't really go after an offensive lineman or defensive lineman. Cedric Van Pran was still available at that time. But that's it. I'm going to give it an A+. I'm going to keep that same energy. They are in a great spot. You have your quarterback of the future. You've got arguably the best edge rusher in this draft class, replacing Danielle Hunter. You got your 1st-round pick next year. And not to mention the undrafted free agent signing of Gabriel Murphy. But I know that strikes a chord saying, well, that's not technically part of your draft class. Okay, whatever. I give this an A+. Mel Kiper strongly disagrees with that. He gave his draft grades out for each team, and for the Minnesota Vikings, he gave a C+, saying, quote, "My qualm about GM Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah's class has more to do with mortgaging the future of this Minnesota roster. He made the move in March to get an extra 1st-rounder at number 23, which cost him a 2nd-round pick next year, and to trade up from 23 to 17, he had to give the Jaguars his 2025 third and fourth rounders. That means the Vikings have just 3 selections next year, 1 in round 1 and 2 in round 5. With the rookie quarterback under center, are they really in position to go all in right now? So, much like the analytical geek squad that I reacted to, saying that the Vikings, what they did through all their trades leading up to picks 10 and 17, the Vikings essentially gave up an additional first-round pick. Mel Kiper saying he has a problem with this, not because of the players they drafted, don't want to talk about that, but because they mortgaged the future. Respectfully, Mel Kiper, what the hell are you talking about? The 2 second-round picks that they gave up for an additional first-round pick, any team in the league would say yes to that in a heartbeat. In fact, reportedly by Adam Schefter, the Texans approached the Vikings with that offer. So that's point number 1. And point number 2, the 2 trade-ups they did in round 1, they had to give up an additional third, 2 fourths, and 2 fifths. Seems like a win to me. When did these 4th and 5th round picks become solid gold? Oh my God, we got to protect these at all costs. That we're mortgaging the future? Why? Because there's a 1% chance that one of them will become Stephon Diggs? That's ridiculous. You got what you consider to be your new franchise quarterback and arguably the best defensive player in this draft class, at least projected to be anyway. What are we talking about here? Speaking of the Houston Texans, essentially what the Vikings did in this draft was what the Texans did in last year's draft, to where they get their new quarterback and Will Anderson. They get the top edge rusher in the class. And you want to say, Mel Kiper, that the Vikings are mortgaging their future with some 4ths and 5ths. The Houston Texans last year, in their trade up to get Will Anderson, at pick number 3 with the Arizona Cardinals, they gave up 2 firsts, a 2nd, and a 3rd, way more than the Vikings gave up in this year's draft. Is everybody looking at the Texans right now saying, oh, their future is bleak? Hell no. They went to the playoffs with CJ Stroud under center. And they have the cap space to sign Danielle Hunter in free agency and trade for Stephon Diggs. Their future is bright as hell. F them picks. And speaking of F them picks, they have their first round pick. The Vikings do next year, but all right, fine. They don't have a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, whatever. You know what? They do have over $100 million in cap space to work with in free agency. My God, this old dinosaur way of thinking, oh, those draft picks, I don't like what they did. What were they supposed to do? Sit there and hope that no one traded up ahead of them to pick 10 with the Jets and then settle for Bo Nix? Because if that's the case, everybody would be fired on the spot. Or, come on, man. When did these 4th and 5th round picks, when did top sirloin become the equivalent of tomahawk steaks? When? That's ridiculous. A+. As far as an off-season grade, I wanted to expand it a little bit. I love what they did at the linebacker position. They have, my goodness, so much depth with their edge rushers. The signing of Shaq Griffin, Aaron Jones. So still at an A+. However, the 2 things I'm going to dock them for is not really providing a solution to the interior defensive line. You could have got DJ Reader. He signed with the Detroit Lions on a 2-year deal, $7.5 million guaranteed. I feel like you could have made that happen, and mishandling the Danielle Hunter situation. If you knew that you weren't going to re-sign him, you should have traded him. But that's it. If anything, you go from an A+, and those 2 things you nitpick them for, bring it down to an A-, B+. They had a very, very good offseason.